Welcome back to another lesson in doable DIY decor. Thank you so much for being here. Happy to have you here with me. My name is Valerie. If this is your first time here. Now, in this lesson, we are looking at how to successfully hang your curtain rods to accommodate your curtains or your draperies in your home. Now, I have a list here. Things you will need. That is your checklist. You may need one or more of these items in order to be able to do that DIY project, right? Now, the first thing is your rod and your brackets. Go to the store and choose the rod and the bracket that you want, because that will actually influence everything else. Even when you're making window treatments, it's best to have your curtain rod in place and then measure from that in order to calculate for your fabric to make your curtain, right? Now, one of the things that's important is when you are hanging your rod for your window treatment, you have to make sure that you have enough brackets. Yeah, it's a given. There's going to be one on the right and there's going to be one on the left. But depending on the expanse, you may need one in the middle, or you may need even more than one in between the two end brackets, right? And that is particularly important if you are DIYing your rod, or if you just picked up a rod in the thrift store without brackets, right? Now, if you're DIYing like I did, I just went into the hardware store and I got myself some water pipes and I used them for window, for rods, right? And I had to buy brackets to go with them. So be cognizant of your expanse and how many brackets you will need to successfully hang the curtain rod to accommodate the curtains or the draperies. The next thing we're looking at is anchors. Basically, okay, so if you have a concrete wall, you can get concrete screws. So you may not need an anchor. However, there are anchors that are made for concrete, brick, any type of masonry structure. And so be cognizant of your situation. If you have a concrete wall, then make sure you choose anchors or screws for concrete, right? If you have drywall, then make sure you choose your anchors for your drywall. Now, there are like lots of anchors that you can buy cheap in the dollar store, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, the cheapest sometimes can become the dearest. So the most expensive, yeah, that's an expression we use back home in Jamaica. I'm not quite sure if you know that expression, but yeah, the cheapest can sometimes become the dearest, because you can buy an anchor that doesn't go with your wall, or you try to put it in your drywall or something, and you put your rod, then you hang your curtain and it rips out. Then what? You got to go patch that drywall and get everything done right. And that is why we say it becomes the dearest, because then you have to go spend more money to do all that patch job. Okay, yeah, another thing that will influence your anchor that you get is the weight of the window treatment that you are hanging. Different anchors will carry different weights, so be aware of that. Yeah, the next thing you need is a drill. You need a drill because you will need that drill. Well, you don't need the drill to screw the screw in, because you could use a screwdriver, right? But you will need a drill to drill the hole into the wall to accommodate your anchor. Now, I would suggest to you that when you buy your anchor and you are going to drill your hole, you look at the package, because usually they will tell you what size bit you need to use to drill the hole for the anchor that's in the package. If you do not have that, then the best thing to do is to keep your bit the same size as the anchor. Okay? Now, the next thing is, yeah, we spoke about the screwdriver you can use to screw in the screw into the anchor. Now, your hammer or mallet, maybe a rubber mallet might be better because you will need it to tap that anchor into the hole after you have drilled that hole. Next, you need a measuring tape. The measuring tape will actually help you to measure out on your wall around your window where you want to place your curtain rod. Now, the tape that you should use is a metal tape. Never use a cloth or a vinyl tape because they are not rigid and so they can skew your measurement. You need to use a rigid metal measuring tape. You also need a pencil. In a minute, we'll show you why you need the pencil. A stud finder. You may or may not need a stud finder. A stud finder actually help you to find where the studs are in the wall. Yeah, your stud finder will help you to find studs in your wall. So for example, if you have your window and you are close to a stud where you can use the stud, where you can drill or screw your rod directly into the stud, then that will be a good thing, right? So you won't need the step of putting in the anchor. You can just screw your rod directly into the stud. Now the next thing is a level. And I put a level in because, take for example, you measure from the ceiling to find the placement, or you measure from the floor to find the placement, and you live in an old crooked home like mine and everything is not all squared, then your window treatment can be wonky, right? And so when you put one bracket in, it's a good idea to rest your rod on it, and that is why I say you should have help. Help comes in that you rest your rod on the one side and the person that's helping you will hold the rod up to where the other side is supposed to be. Then you use your level in the middle to make sure that your curtain is going to be level when you are finished installing it. So yeah, this is your checklist in order to be able to install rods for your draperies. Now let's look a bit at the steps that you would take in order to install your curtain rod. We are going to look at how to measure to locate where we want to put our brackets to receive our rods and subsequently our curtains or draperies, right? Now, if you have a window that is far down from your crown molding, one of the things you want to make sure you do is measure from your casing. Measure 8 to 10 inches above your casing to locate where to put your bracket. However, if you do not have a great expanse here, what you can do is measure 1 to 2 inches from the crown molding to determine where your rod will go. Now the 1 to 2 inches will ensure that you don't have like a big gap of wall in between your crown molding and your curtains. Another thing I want to say to you is, if you have a big expanse of wall between your casing, your window casing, and your crown molding, then make sure you always measure from your casing. Because if you measure from your crown molding 1 to 2 inches and you put your rod, what you'll have is a big expanse of blank wall staring at you. And I never like seeing that. I don't think it looks good. If you plan to put layer treatment, then you could put a Roman shade under, and then you could let it fall just above the casing of the window, and then you won't see that blank wall. However, that's more fabric, that's more time, that's more money, even if you're doing it yourself, right? Worse if you're taking it to the workroom, right? And so I would suggest to you that if you have that expanse, just measure from above your casing 8 to 10 inches, right? Now, for the sides, how far off the casing should you put your bracket to house your rod? I would suggest that a sweet spot is between 4 to 6 inches. And the reason I say that is because that will ensure that you don't have light seepage at the edge of the curtain. It will also ensure that you will have enough space for stack back. Remember, check that video out if you don't know what stack back is. I spoke about 10 different terms that is useful for you to know when you are trying to DIY or even get in a workroom to do your curtains or your draperies, right? And so that will ensure that you have enough space for stack back, and your window will be able to get off your curtains will be able to get off your window, so you can let in more light, right, as necessary. Now, there's nothing that says you can't go above that 6 inches. You can go 8, 10, 12, right? However, as I said before, it's more fabric, it's more work, it's more money. If you're DIYing it yourself, it's more for you to deal with. And if you're going to the workroom, yeah, you got to pump that budget up, right? So let's keep it 4 to 6 inches away from the casing of the window. Here, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, we want it to be 4 inches off the casing on both sides. Now, another thing is, depending on your situation, there might be some architectural elements in the space that will affect where you place your curtain rods. And so, yes, you have to evaluate that. So what we're doing here is general, give you an idea, set you on the path, but then you have to evaluate your situation, just like you have to evaluate, okay, what type of wall structure do I have to buy the correct screws and or anchors. It's the same thing with your window placement, right? With your curtain placement. It's the same thing with your rod placement, right? You have to evaluate your space and then figure out where to put your rod, right? So 4 inches off, and we're going to go with this expanse kind of look a bit big here. So I don't think I want to come from the crown. What I want to do is go from the casing. So let's go 6 inches above the casing. Now that we have decided, and remember, we are using our rigid metal tape to do all our measurements, just so that we don't end up in any issues. You could also use a square to make sure that when you're measuring, you're getting things as square as possible. And so, yeah, what we will do here then is measure 6 inches up. I didn't have chalk on that checklist, but maybe just to ensure that you get it right, you could use a piece of pale, maybe white chalk. You don't have to press on it too hard. You could even use tailor's chalk, because this is trying to make it as easy and as simple as possible for you to be able to DIY, right? And so what I would do is measure 6 inches this side, 6 inches this side, and then I would go ahead and draw a line. My line is so wonky and my marker is finishing. Okay, but I would draw a line all the way across with my chalk. And then the next thing I'll do is measure my 4 inches here. measure my 4 inches here. Then I would go ahead and oh, you know, this can make it easier for you, right? So let's forget about measuring the 4 inches on the sides here. Easy does it, right? Easy does it. If you can make something simple for yourself, don't make it complicated. And so what I would suggest that you do is go ahead and use your square, draw a line from the top of the casing here all the way up to this line. On the same, do the same thing over here. And then measure 4 inches from where the lines intersect here, and then you will know where to put your brackets. Isn't that simple? Yeah, that is way simpler than what I was gonna do there. So yeah, we measure 6 inches up, 6 inches up, draw a line across, then take your line from your casing using a square all the way up to intersect with this line, and then where it intersects, measure 4 inches out, right? 4 inches out, and that is where you put your bracket. Now that you have marked where you are going to put your bracket, what you're going to do next is put the bracket on and make sure that your mark is at the top of your bracket. Then you're going to get your pencil, and I say a pencil because a pencil has a sharp point that can go through the holes. So you're going to get your pencil and you're going to make your marks, and the marks that you make, that is where you are going to use your drill to drill holes. Now remember, you need to have the appropriate drill bit for the appropriate size anchor. Now, after you have drilled your holes and you get your mallet or your hammer and gently tap your anchor into the holes, then you get your bracket and you put your bracket back over the anchors, and then you go ahead and you can use the drill or you can use a screwdriver and screw into the anchor to hold your brackets in place. You do the same thing over here. Now, depending on the expanse, if you want to put another bracket at the center, then you just have to measure across to see what the measurement is, divided by 2, and you find where to put your center bracket. You put the bracket on just like so, make your marks, drill your holes, put the anchor in, put the bracket back on, and go ahead and screw the thing into, go ahead and screw into the anchor. And of course, when you're done putting your brackets on, you're going to go ahead and put your curtain rod on, and it's ready to receive your curtains. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let me know if this is useful to you. Let me know if there's anything that I can share with you that can help you to easily DIY projects around your home. Please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. I hope to see you for the next lesson.